Okay, so today I'm going to talk to you about the insider threat, the human aspect, and let me add that I think it is an emotional thing. It's going to be half an hour of hopefully a journey that you CISOs and security people would love to hear. Hopefully there will be some level of refreshing information that I will provide to you, because as CISO, to be honest, we heard many things already. So let's see if we can hear something new about the emotional aspect of an insider threat. As you can see, there's lots of diagrams, lots of frameworks, lots of workflows of telling you what you're doing wrong, how it needs to be fixed, but I guess you all know that. So we're not going to focus about it. Let's get to the topic. There are a few types of insider threats. In fact, there are three. Before we start, let's understand what M stands for, what I stands for, and what the N stands for. M, malicious. I, intentional. N, none. So if we have M and I, it is malicious and intentional. Who are those? These are the fraudulent people, those that really want to commit fraud. Right at the bottom, we've got non-malicious and intentional. These are people that I'll get back to them just now. But in the middle, we've got the oops guys, the non-malicious and the non-intentional. These are people that when they click send, they didn't realize that they sent it to Guy Adams. They thought they sent it to Guy Golan. And they made a mistake and discovered a lot of secrets by doing that. That is almost inevitable. At the very bottom, we've got malicious but non-intentional. I haven't seen a person that has malicious activity but he doesn't have intent. So every person that is malicious must have an intent. Let's go back to the non-malicious and the intentional people. These are the guys that we say, I'm just trying to do my job. These are 99% of your employees in your organization that will carry the job that you give them, the task that you give them. They'll do it in the best possible way according to their knowledge and expertise. And as you can see, we believe in everywhere you see, there's a constant growth between the just trying to do my job to those people or those incidents that are very malicious and trying to really cause bad and damage to the organizations that they are. There's another slide with some statistics, but I guess you know all of it, so I really don't want to even look at it. 3 types of data. In the information security world at the moment, I think there's a 4th one, but there are 3 types of data recognized by all the big guys. Data at rest, data in use, and data in motion. A small recap. Data at rest, information that resides on your servers, on your file servers, your databases, anywhere that has some form of storage. Data in use, information that you are busy working with. And data in motion is information that flows, and something very easy to recognize what data in motion is. Click send and you lost control of the information forever, because now it is in somebody else's hands. So if you look at the people that deal with that data, on data at rest you've got privileged user managers. You've got people with root access, or people that are DB admin, programmers, end users. Data in use, you've got people that are in the process, people that just pass by, because if they're exposed to a printed document, they just pass by, and users as well. And data in motion, slightly different, systems, and lots of automated system, man in the middle, and third-party people. So I send it to somebody outside of the organization, and constantly I liaise with him. He is part of data in motion, and obviously the users himself. When it comes to the 4th element, I think there's data in process that has never been really spoken about. Just imagine a table with the top and 4 legs. Those 4 legs, when they are separated from the top, you can't call it a table. But if someone has a good mind of how to assemble it, they will have a table in their hands. So data in process, in my view, should take also a form of protection, but I haven't seen many things going and addressing that specific element. So how does it happen? A little bit of graph, and I don't think it's a bullshit graph, I think it's actually quite a nice one. On the y-axis you've got A, and on the x-axis you've got D. A stands for access, D stands for distribution. So basically, in order to commit a breach, you need to have a fine combination of access and distribution which allow you to take something and send it over. Clearly and naturally, from the people we mentioned in the previous slide, the admin, the PUM, the programmers, the root, the middle, and the systems have more strength on the access side. And if they gain distribution, they can do it. And the same goes with users, process, third party, and those that pass by, they've got more the distribution side, and if they get access, they'll be able to do it. So there's a cascaded graph in the middle, which we call it the temptation curve, which means that's something that allows an individual to be tempted to do something. But because really we haven't analyzed it to an algorithmic level and to understand scientifically how it is built, we call that area the danger zone, which is the zone of where breaches can happen. Small natural breach that happens in every organization is the detailed orientation between HR and finance. HR by default, their mecca of information is salaries. What is salaries for finance? Only a budget line. As such, people treat that type of information differently because for finance, budget line around salaries and around stationery gets almost the same weight in terms of how you treat the information. While HR, they want to protect that level of information. You need one more element which is not in the graph, which is the last element. It's the third dimension called T. T stands for trigger. So if you are in a situation that you are being tempted, but there's no trigger, you will not commit a breach. But if you are tempted and there is a trigger, you will. Now everybody would think that trigger is a gun pointed to your head. No, this is not the case. Might be, but not all the case. Gun pointed to the head is an extreme situation of a trigger, but let's talk about other triggers. I'm a new employee trying to impress my boss. I'm due for promotion. I need to get my bonus. I've got a deadline to meet. Or I need to impress other people, or really someone is holding my kids as hostages. I don't think that is something that really is the most common in terms of how you commit breach, but I think the first examples I've given of people that just try to do the job will do it. Another aspect of committing breach, which is more on the M and I, remember, malicious and intentional, are people that basically are frustrated with the organization and they want to get back at it. How? They're going to get a very good motivation. People will pay them some hefty sum of money and they will cause that damage. Okay, so basically, now that we know how it happens, let's get to another graph that you don't really want to look at because you really know this information. And let's analyze what people versus data means. So interestingly enough, in a few of the presentations I've done on this topic, I basically gathered together amount of CISOs and asked them the question and asked them in an anonymous way to respond to it. Now, obviously, we can't do it right now because this is a recorded presentation, but I'm asking you to answer the questions of people versus data, and I'll give you a second or two to respond. What's more important to your organization, people or data? Okay, I assume you have an answer for that. Second question is, what's the biggest asset of your organization? Is it more people or is it more data? Okay, I'm sure you've given an answer to yourselves. Let's go to the third point. Who or what do you trust more? Do you trust people more or do you trust data more? Okay, now let's go to the last one. And how does your organization define success? By looking at a person or group of people, or by looking at data, your shares, your financial results? How do they declare what success is? Okay, so just to reveal a small secret, in a survey I've done with lots of CISOs, the first two people got actually the upper hand in terms of what is more important. And in terms of the last two questions, data was the one that dominated more the response. So regardless even if the answer was, the fact that there are people and data, my question is, if you are measured on success of data, but people are the ones that you really rely on, we have a problem. We really have a gap here. We have a conflict here between something as clean and as cold as data versus something as sophisticated and sometimes annoying as people. How do we bridge that gap? What do we do with it? There we go. So then the big question is, if we want to start with people, because eventually what my understanding is that people generate data, and the data is the one that we are measured on, then the biggest question we have is, do we have the guts to trust. I'm not asking how you're trusting, because clearly you would say yes. To me, trusting, you need to have guts to trust. And the big issue about trusting is that if you do trust, then the bad guys can exploit the situation. If you do not trust, then the big other question is, how do people feel? If you go, imagine yourself going to one of your employees as CISOs or as managers, and you say, I don't trust you because my job is not to trust you. How do you think those people are going to feel? How do you feel after you say that? Okay, so basically what you need to come and say is that I trust everybody until proven wrong. Is that the case? But do we really have the guts to properly and genuinely trust, or we just say it? So we have a gap here even between what we say and what we really need to do. So the bottom line about security, and I've been saying it for many years, is that security is subjective. You know, we live here in a small place called Johannesburg in South Africa, and many visitors that come to this place see that the streets are full with walls and some electric fences. But even that, it doesn't really matter where you live. For some people, security means a small fence. For others, top security would mean a dog. And for others, top security, which is equivalent to the other one with a dog, would mean high walls, electric fences, electric cameras, alarm, and 7 dogs in the yard that haven't been eaten or eating for the past 10 days. So security is something that is subjective. If it is subjective, it is open for translation. If it is open for translation, it means there will be some expectations. If there are expectations, it means that people will be disappointed going forward. So, with people, while security is subjective, people, it is emotional. Every person is an emotional thing. I'm going to give you a small example that I live by. I call it the sandwich factor. If you go now to a meeting with the CEO together with 500 fellow employees, and the CEO says, well, the year has been bad, and we're going to retrench about 10% of the employees, and you're a bit concerned about that, and as you move out of that meeting, you know that basically it's not necessarily your department, it's somebody else's department. But as you go back to your table, to your desk, you see that your lunch sandwich has been stolen. What will concern you more right now? The 10% that will lose their job, shame on them, and I feel sorry for them, or the fact that I don't have lunch? So with people, it is emotional. But if you go one step further, within the insider threat, it's actually an emotional reality. It used to be a game, but it's not a game anymore. This is a genuine reality of what is happening, because the insider threat is using and exploiting through many tactics that they use, including social engineering. They use the emotional aspect in order to exploit the system and get it done. They are nice to people for a reason. They are not nice to people for a reason. They are going home for a reason, and they are not going home by staying till late for a reason. It's an emotional action. And you remember the second or third slide I've just shown you, that basically the non-malicious yet intentional people, there is a growth in terms of basically fraud, embezzlement happening towards the malicious and the intentional. This is one of the examples. So let's try and understand now how we deal with this insider threat and the emotional aspect of it. And by the way, whatever is something that you cannot quantify and something that the response can be yes or no from two different individuals, I will relate to it as an emotional and something that even logic cannot apply to. So definitely we have to ask ourselves 5 WH questions. And I'm coming from a background that even the how there in the middle, it has W and H in it. So just refer to 5 WH questions that we all studied when we were children at school. N+1 that we all need to ask. Who, what, how, where, and when. If you refer to any form of people versus data, who is the people? What is the data? How, where, and when are the means? So if we look at basically how you measure success, you normally look at what. And this is what most people look. Show me that credit card information is being leaked. Show me that patient information is being leaked. Is my private information in jeopardy? And so on and so forth. Everybody relate to the what. But they somehow miss the point of discussion about who, which is far more crucial, because the who, the what, meaning the insider threat, the data and the means, will give you one answer that you really want to know, which is why. Why people do what they do. Let's give one example. You've got now a CFO, that's the who, sends merger and acquisition information, that is the what. He sends it via webmail, and he does it from his house on a Sunday. So you will come to your CFO and say, listen, it's not really appropriate to do that because you need to send it via an email. He might bark at you and say, how dare you? And by that it's over. How will now the answer will change about the why if he sends the information to the competition? How will it change if now it doesn't do it on a Sunday, it does it from office time from the office? How will it change if it's not the CFO that sends the information to the competition, but the PA or someone that is totally not relevant to the finance department, let's say someone from sales, and he sends this information to the competition? How will that change? The why will definitely going to change and might be quite offensive. So if that is the case, we want to make sure that we get the combination of all those answers, because, again, we're dealing with people versus data. You both all think that people are important and data is important, but you measure them differently and in different situations. Another small example is what will happen, for example, if one individual leaks 1 million credit card information, just hypothetically, and 1 million people leak one credit card. So clearly the outcome is that 1 million credit cards have been leaked, which is a big breach. But if we look at one person leaking 1 million, what is probably the idea behind that? Why would a person do that? What is the modus operandi? Most likely that a person like that is probably suspicious in fraud. And if you look at 1 million people leaking one credit card, you would probably relate it and allocate it more to the area of wrong business process. So if this is the case, imagine now that your action against the insider threat is getting very different. Because now, if you have basically action against the malicious guy and against just people that try to do their job. Imagine, okay, so the action against a malicious person is to accuse and hang. And against people that just try to do the job but they don't follow processes, to teach them the process. Correct? Imagine you use the wrong tool, and instead of hanging the malicious guy, you come and say, well, let me teach you how to do it better next time. Obviously, he will laugh his heart out and he will say, these guys are really cuckoo, I'm going to do it again. And imagine even worse, that you go to the 1 million people and you want to fix their business process, but what you do is you are now giving them a warning letter to say you haven't done your job. You're going to have a huge change and a huge impact on culture instantly. So all of that have to be taken into account. So if it is emotional, we need to nurture emotional intelligence. My biggest question is, does your team feel security? Surely you employed your team so they know security. Surely you've given them a lot of training around what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. But when they click enter, when they take an action, do they feel what it means? Do they have the ability to understand what the repercussions are when they do that? Okay, so if this is the case, and it is an emotional stuff, we need to understand and how we nurture an emotional intelligence culture. And by that, I want an answer to a question. Does your team feel security? When I talk about feel, do they understand and can relate to what's happening when they click enter, when they take an action? Because if the perpetrator, the insider threat, is using emotional elements to get what they're targeting, surely the team has to get the same tools to do that. But the bigger question is, do they understand and do they get the feeling of what security means? Small example is that, the world, as we said, there's no game anymore. This is a true reality. So if you look at the breaches that happen around the world, Target as an example, you're looking at a situation that many people have lost their job. And I'm not relating to the CIO or the CEO. I'm relating to the cashiers, to the people that pack your groceries. They lost their job because of a security breach. So security is no longer something that is related just to the world of, the executives of security. This is far broader than that. But I guess you know that already as CISOs. My question is, do you feel it? And does your team feel that? So if so, can you grow a culture of emotional intelligence? Can you bring it to a point that your team can feel information or feel what's happening around them and feel what it means to protect your organization? Or it is just a job for them? Let's give an example. Let's talk about ADT or Chubb or any security company, physical security company. You've got now a situation that the alarm has been triggered. Now a security guy runs to your house or to your offices. I don't know if you've seen what they do before they jump over the fence. Okay, they try and call, nobody answers. They try and call again, nobody answers. They ring the bell, nobody answers. Before they decide to pull a gun and jump over the fence, they do the following thing. They check if there's any further risk around that. Do you think they do it for you? I doubt it. I think they do it for themselves and their lives. Why? Because let's look at the following thing. Who are those people that should safeguard your life? They are low-paid salary relatively, and in that regard, do they feel what security means? Do they feel what it means to be held hostage, to have a gun held to your head? Do they feel what it means? Or they don't. They just see it, and they see it just in another movie where, the big boy and the big guy is beating the bad guys, or sometimes he runs away from them. I bet you that if they jump through the fence, you can say that it was a false alarm, because if they didn't jump through the fence or over the fence, you know for a fact that there's a problem there and they're not going to go in, although the job is to get in and clear the mess. Another example about feeling it. How many of you had actually a fraud conducted on your credit card, your identity, your bank account, anything like that? I'm sure that each and every one of us had that. Well, I had it. And it doesn't really matter which country you are at. So the bottom line is this. How was the feeling when it happened? How was the feeling going and running and getting your documentation and your credit card reissued and justify that it wasn't your expense and going through all that hustle and bustle? Was it a nice feeling? Can you apply the same feeling when you protect your employees, your customers' information? Can you relate to it what it means when you do that? I think this is the magic of what happens to an amazing security team compared to what happens to just another security team. What happens between those that really understand that you are at a moment of distress and risk, and they will try and help you. And also they'll understand that if they do the following, you're going to feel something about it, and either they want to encourage it or they want to discourage it, depends on the incident or the event itself. Let's ask the following question. So in what areas do we want our team to feel in combating against insider threat? So I've put some, I believe this is the major ones, but there might be others. We want it in the DLP area, data loss prevention, because that's where the heart of the insider threat comes to life. That's where the DLP started its life, from the insider threat. You want it in security incident and event management, in the SIEM solution and the SOC attached to it, because you're going to gather so many incidents coming, and it becomes almost cold facts that people do not understand, or even more importantly, feel what it means before they do it. You want people that have the ability to feel, and we need to give them the tools to feel properly. Same goes with threat intelligence. Same goes with privileged user management, with those that have access to the kingdom. How do they feel when they understand that they hold the key to the kingdom and they are managing it in this way or the other? Database administrators, again, another key to the kingdom. And those that deal with code and programming, because you run so many applications that normally are proprietary to your environment. And those guys, every one of those either has the key to the kingdom or has the ability to analyze what it means to have the keys to the kingdom. So this is in short where I feel that you need to grow a culture of emotional intelligence. The next presentation will be about how we make a team feel what security means, and I'm hoping you're going to enjoy that too. And that was it in terms of my presentation, Insider Threat. It is emotional. I hope you enjoyed it and found it to be refreshing. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to email me at guy.golan@performanta.com. Thank you.